Kofi Hazirum Zipti. Some ancient Romans said something along the lines of pagans worship herbs and Jews worship stones. Now, I'm not sure what he said because back in the day, calling somebody pagan because of their religion just, didn't make any sense. So, I guess we can start from the Hanukkah angle. Hanukkah basically is the historical start of Judaism, and it's founded on a war chronicle. A chronicle which represents the driving out of Europeans and their culture. And in a way, we can take a lesson off that. Well, a couple lessons, actually. We can look at what's going on right now. We can take it as an example of protecting ours and our own. Now, I'm not saying too much about the current political conflict because things have to go beyond that. But, on one side, we have the wanderers of Tiamat, the female Satan. That's a very powerful myth, and I'll address that more in the Yule ceremony, right? And on the other hand, you have the opportunity to take the other side and engage in the harsh and forbidden things, at least usually forbidden things. So there's that opportunity to direct one's attention. And as far as insight roles or using them as a background, the Jews tend to be more of people that are into meaning and technique and all that stuff than the Protestants. Even more so than your typical Catholic or Orthodox. So you don't always have to work in opposition. But as far as opposition, it's a very sectarian type of people. There's never one opinion, and you can always find something to argue about with people. And so there's that value. Some people are going to be drawn more to the klipa, the klipit, the kliput, the peels, the husks, the shells, the ashia, the fire realm, as it's called, as the source of evil, the sithra atra. Now, a lot of what is posted about that isn't accurate from a Hebrew perspective, much less from the biblical language or something before that. Many people can point out to you some of the differences between, just like Christianity. Judaism represents and redoes its own versions of other myths. Sometimes the language changed back and forth. They certainly preserve things from various other paths that we can use. The Tangazit became the Khazar tribe, the first Zionist kingdom, as one may know. And, the Moloch worshippers were particularly common amongst them, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of techniques of magic and astrology and all sorts of stuff that has a lot darker of an origin than people tend to realize. We can take an active role in what's called Pertsup, which are divine personas. we don't have to make it all fluffy like some organization like the Golden Dawn would. And no, I know Golden Dawn's not in any way terribly explicitly related, but and so there's Aulum and the Hetu, so the confusing world, and the Aulum Hetun, so for reconciling. So you can put things together and tear them apart. The power is in us to do these things. Kabbalah, of course, in itself, it's the directioning, it's the it's tradition, and it's on the basis of Masha Merkaba. It's like Nergargle Schlad used to say, the Satanist is his own prophet. So Nebuah, in that sense, is the people who would become prophets, as they would want to think. We have the Masha Merkaba, the vehicle meditation. And so even though it's not your ancestors, there's a lot of lying going around like that about in the Jewish world, for a point. But you can use the vehicles of certain myths towards your own ends. And that's why you can do things in groups, right? We have the Het Bunut, your typical meditation going between. There's various techniques that a person can involve themselves in. The Word of Nine Angles also uses some of these things too. You have the Het Budtut, the isolation, and you learn to be individual on yourself when you do that sort of thing. We have the Makubal, so the receiver. So not everybody in a ritual is going to perform the same operations. And we of course don't have any of the safeguards in Temple of Blood about, receivers and stuff like this. We don't feel like we have to banish whatever we've done. We don't have protective circles around us. We can set up a cosmology or whatever, but we don't use this to protect ourselves. We have the Masha Brashit, the act of creation, as it's called, also broader known as the act of the chariot. And the act of the chariot it's kind of like chaos magic in the way that you set something up and you let it fall if you want. There's the ionic goals of Tsum, condensation, and this is put into a vacant space. So sometimes you have to create a vacant space. When you're practiced with these various things, you can realize that you're of different parts. A Nepesh, the animal soul, the Ruch, the spirit, the Nushma, the super soul, the Cha, the life force itself, the Gechidya, the union. But of course, we would give these things different contexts than a Jew would. And we have the different approaches to how to refer to the mythological material. And so, some people are going to look through the etymologies and all that other stuff and look at sheerly historical things. But there's enough games to play with things as things are. We have Pashuth, we have direct meaning, we have Rimas, we have illusion, we have Dersh, we have inquiry, which regards the sources and, compares them, that sort of stuff. We have Sud, which is the mystery, which is not really It's not really the same as picking apart the letters and that sort of stuff. But there's something else that's not really part of that that has been associated for its use. You know, kind of like the idea that with all these letter and number games, that something that's not at all what's being said is what it is. You know, you have, and all these words, they're formulas. They're formulas, they're names. There's a lot of stuff that we can do with that. And Hapnui is the vacant space. Okay. And so we have the cube of creation and other attributes like that. I don't know why it switched over, but you know what I mean. You use the alphabet and that sort of stuff to set up a cube of creation. But where does that come from? That comes from the Kunguzit tribe. And speaking of the Kunguzit displaying itself as if they are, you know, really ancient Israelites, we have this idea of innovation or not. Because as I said, Judaism started not with Abraham or Moses or something like this. It started with the Maccabees. And so rabbinic Judaism related to how the priest groups worked in Persia and elsewhere, and that kind of blended in before that. But we have this character called the Vilna of Gaon. He's of the Khazar version of the tribe of Dan. And it's said that the tribe of Dan is supposed to produce the Antichrist. Now, this sort of thought, swept up, it can refer to a certain leader of a certain country. And that leader of that certain country is a descendant of Vilna of Gaon. And, okay. And of course, we could talk more about the four worlds and the Seprut, the spheres of these worlds, and but you know that's not really quite the point. Yeah, let me see if there's any questions. Lam Qasaztiva Mahavak Sleeve, Wo Kilti Haziram Zapti, Lam Qasaztiva Mahavak Sleeve, Wo Kilti Haziram Zapti. And one of the mythological aspects that perhaps we can look at is this 13th tribe. This 13th tribe, which is open. And that's said to be where it's going to be all at, right? It's the strongest is going to come from this open tribe. People of Moloch.